Yo, back for episode 3. Awesome. I'm so stoked that people are digging this thing. It's cool. Thanks for the comments from yesterday's one. Yeah, and so today, this one goes out to a really, really good friend of mine, one of my best friends on the whole planet, David Barry. He's one of our essential workers who's just, man, God bless our essential workers right now in this crazy, crazy time. David, man, thanks for everything you do for the community and in our friend group too. You're always that dude who's just the glue, who's just always positive and man, I love you, dude. You're a good dude, man. All right, so David, this album today is dedicated to you, and I know it's one of your favorites. It's one of my favorites. This one is Check Your Head, Beastie Boys. Come on, check your head. Come on, Beastie Boys t-shirt on. We're ready to rock. Okay. So this album was really for me. It was the album that really made me really see Beastie Boys as being an epic band, epic group. And I mean, I owned License to Ill and Paul's Boutique. I had those two albums and I liked them. License to Ill's it's a cool album. It's fun. It's yeah. I guess I'd call it a fun album. I don't think I really ever took it seriously. Paul's Boutique was cool. It's got some great tracks on it. Dust Brothers produced that, and they did a great job. Apparently, it was a really expensive album, though, real expensive. And so when Beastie Boys finished that one, they were like, "Oh, I don't know, man. We can't afford to go and do the same thing." And I think one of the big sort of dollar tags or price tags or whatever that was going on for that album was sampling. Back back in the day, sampling was free. I mean, people didn't really even realize that you were taking other people's music and sampling it. But as people started to cotton on, hey, hang about, you're taking my song and I ain't getting paid for that. So they started to crack down a little bit. And there are lots and lots of samples used all through Paul's Boutique. Like it's just heavily, heavily sampled album. So Beastie Boys were like, well, let's do something different. Okay. And that's when, I imagine it would have been MCA because he's the brains of the operation. Not saying the other two aren't onto it as well, but I mean, even in their book, you know, um, they talk about how MCA was the man. He was the instigator of many things, and he would have said, "Hey, let's just play our music. Let's do it ourselves." So, and they hadn't done that for a long time. I don't know if many people know this, but before Beastie Boys started out as a hip hop group, they were like a sort of like a punk hardcore kind of group. They played punk. They played their instruments. They started off as a punk hardcore group. That's how they became. I don't know, got into the music world. And they hadn't actually got back on their instruments on an album since those early days. So it was really cool that they were like, we can do this, we can do this. The album came out in 1992, April 1992. That's when it was released, Capitol Records. Um, yeah, it's I don't know, fantastic album. All right, so I think that one of the big things for the Beastie Boys around this time was, you know, they didn't want to spend ridiculous amounts of money for things that they could probably do themselves. Um, and they've been listening to a lot of music like Jimmy Smith, Stevie Wonder, um, uh, Latin, Latin soul and jazz, groove homes, and they're like that's what they were digging. They'd kind of moved away from like the kind of cheesy rock stuff, and they're really sort of maturing as musicians, and really finding what they love and just exploring lots of different sounds. In their book, they talk about during this time between the time of Paul's Boutique and when they started recording Check Your Head, they were partaking a lot and just sitting around listening to albums, and it just was a great time for them to really just kind of branch out and think about what their sound wanted to be. Um, so yeah, but they knew that doing this new kind of sound, they were gonna need a musician that was really awesome. I mean, they're probably the first. I think in their book they say we could play our instruments, but we weren't virtuosos. And the kind of music they wanted to play, you know, the stuff they were listening to were guys who'd been perfecting their instrument for 20, 30 years. So they knew they weren't that good. They're like yo, we got to get a keys player. We got to get someone on the organ who can really, really do that thing. And they had a look around. Uh, One of the first things they did, they got themselves a new producer. And this is when Mario Cordato came in. Mario C. This is the first time they collabed with him, and it would be the beginning of a very beautiful relationship. Mario C. Man, what a producer, man! He's the man. He's the man. So, story goes that Mike D. Well, all the Beastie Boys were renting a house, and Mike D, maybe under the influence of something, he crashed his car into the front gate of the house, and he was like, "Oh man, we can't call the landlord because they don't want to be evicted." He was like, "We got to get someone to fix this." So he said to Mario C, "Yo man, you know anyone who can fix a gate for us?" Mario C is like, "Yo, I know this guy. We all know a guy, eh? We all got that guy who can, my guy's Paul Spicer. I need anything fixed or done. Man, Paulie can do everything." So Mario C was like, "Yo, I know this dude, Mark." So man, I feel real bad, but I forget Mark's last name because he's pretty important to the Beastie Boys story. And they introduced him to Mark, and Mark come along, fixed their gate. Um, and somehow through conversation, they found out that Mario C and Mark used to play in bands together. They grew up together, and that Mark was a badass musician. And they're like, "Yo, man, you want to do some keys for us?" He's like, "Yeah, sounds cool." And Money Mark, into Money Mark. That's where Money Mark came from. Money Mark is he's like they call him the fourth Beastie Boy. And for Check Your Head, like he made that album. I don't care what anyone says. Money Mark made that album awesome. His playing throughout that whole album is just it's exceptional. It's great. It just really gave Beastie Boys that sound that they wanted. And they say the same thing. I'm pretty sure. I wouldn't know because I never met them, but I'm pretty sure if you asked them, they'd say, "Yeah, Money Mark made that album." Right. So from there, they were like, "Right, hey, we don't want to be in the studio anymore." I mean, one of the hard parts about recording in a studio is that you are paying by the hour. This is someone else's digs. You got to pay the man. You got to pay them for the time, and all the gear that's in there. You got to rent it. It becomes part of the package. So like, that's a lot of pressure. Like you have to go into the studio and go, right, okay, you got half an hour, get this thing done. And I know from my own experience that my best music comes from just having the time to just jam and just let the music breathe and have time to sort of leave it and come back to it and think about it some more. And that's what Beastie Boys were all about then. They were like, no, we don't want to push out an album because everyone's waiting for one. We want to play what we want to play, and we want to play it how we want to play it, and we don't want that pressure of time, or money. And so like we got to get ourselves our own studio. Um, and so they came across a building, um, which I believe was called Gelson Plumbing, and so Gelson Plumbing. But the between the G and the Sun, so that some of the letters had fallen off the sign out the front, and it just said G Sun. So that's where they got the name G Sun for their studio. But upstairs was like an old ballroom, and it had been abandoned for a long time or unused anyway. So like, cool man, we'll take that. And there's this big old ballroom that they kind of decked out. Um, Decking out, they put a skate ramp in there. That's cool. And a basketball hoop. You can play some basketball when you're in between takes. Cool. And then in their book, actually in Beastie Boys' book, there's this really cool. You can turn to one of the pages, and there's like a layout or the blueprints of how they like put up different walls, and they basically constructed a studio in this old ballroom with like a sound room and everything, and control room and stuff. It's pretty cool. I love that. I love that about musicians who are innovative, who go, we're gonna do things our way. And Beastie Boys were, if nothing, they were innovative. And they just said, "This is how we want to do it. We want to put it all together this way." And as a drummer, my favorite part of reading their book was in this ballroom they've got. MCA, crazy guy, I love him. He was like, "Man, I want a fat drum sound. I want a fat like John Bonham drum sound." And so they took the drums off the kind of stage where they put them, and they put them right in the middle of the ballroom, like right, boom, where the biggest sound was going to come from, and it's like it had all this big ambiance, all this big reverb going on, and then that wasn't enough. MCA was like, man, we should get some cardboard boxes and like make a big cardboard tube. I don't know, I forget how long it was, but they got this big tube going on where these cardboard boxes were connected to the front of the kick drum, the bass drum, and they taped like a mic to the kick drum, and then they put some mics throughout the cardboard tube. That's how they got their drum sound. And there's some fat drum sounds in that album too. I love it. I love that kind of thing. Like I love hearing about how bands, kind of go, hey, let's experiment. Let's experiment and try some different things. Let's try some sounds, and it's like boom, that's what they get. They get this amazing sound. Yeah, so made their own studio, just cool as. Man, I want to make a studio one day. One day I want to make my own studio. David Barry, I know you're listening to this and watching it. If any of my facts are wrong or you want to challenge something, you be sure to do that, brother. Because I know that you know Beastie Boys probably way better than me, probably better than anyone. Me and David were, we're talking about doing a Beastie Boys cover band one day. I don't know, maybe it'll happen. We'll see. It's one of those things you talk about and then like, yeah, cool man, we'll do that. And then life happens, but I'd like to do that. So now they've got their studio. They're like, okay, we got to get some instruments on this thing. We got to go. I mean, when you go into a studio, you can take your instruments, but usually they got some stuff that you can use there. And Beastie Boys like, we got to get ourselves an arsenal. And they knew the kind of sounds they wanted. They knew that they wanted like a real soulful kind of feel, real jazzy, real groovy, real funky. And so they had an idea of the type of stuff they wanted. Um, and luck having it, um, they were in a time where everybody was getting rid of their old antique stuff. Musicians were getting rid of their old organs and their old guitar amps and things like that because people were seeing them as obsolete. We don't want that stuff anymore. That's from the old school. We want to get on the new thing. We want to get the new amped up gears and all the souped up stuff. And I guess at the time people were wanting to have that new crisp sound. Production levels were starting to get quite up there. And luckily for the Beastie Boys, they're like everybody's selling their stuff. And Mike D sort of writes about this one thing in the book where he says that every time they turned up to someone's house to buy some old equipment, there was like a story to it, and it was kind of a bittersweet because the story would be, some guy who was a musician, he had these dreams of becoming a musician and making these albums, and it just didn't work out for them. And so they were selling their stuff, and it worked out great for the Beastie Boys. But yeah, Mike D was like, it's always this kind of weird, like, sorry about that, man, but thanks for the good deal. And so yeah, Beastie Boys, they said there was this cool newspaper called the Recycler, and that's kind of like I think in New Zealand, like we used to have what's it called? Ah, the Loot. I think it was called a Loot. Yeah, Loot magazine, where people. This is pre-internet, man. This is pre-internet before you could just go on Trade Me and look for whatever you wanted or eBay. Pre-internet, you had to have like a newspaper or a magazine where people would, actually take the time to put in an ad and say, "Yo, getting rid of an old Wurlitzer organ. Anybody want to buy it?" And you'd have to get that magazine and read through it, and then you had to be the first person to call. You'd beat it if you didn't beat everybody else, you weren't going to get it. So yeah, Beastie Boys said they had this newspaper called the Recycler, and just as soon as it came out, they'd buy it up and they'd go through it before anybody else could call up and get the stuff. And all their instruments, I think, yeah, pretty much all the instruments they used on Check Your Head came from just going around to people's houses and saying, "Hey man, I'll give you $100 for your old organ or $20 for that amp, that pedal." That's cool. I just love that. The reason I love this album so much is just because it's got such a great sound, but it's not a polished sound. Well, it kind of is, but it's not like a manufactured sound where they spent all this money in a studio. They did it real DIY. They did it themselves the way they wanted to. I respect that. That's cool. That's real cool. All right. Yep. Talked about the drum sound, artwork. So the artwork on this album, artwork is cool. Where are we? So you see the cover. So just the Beastie Boys sitting out on the corner, on the curb, and they got their instruments. Um, And the inspiration for this, the idea for the album artwork came from the guy who took the photo, whose name is Glenn E. Friedman, and he was like, "Oh, you guys are going back to playing your instruments. That's cool. Why don't we just get a shot of you guys just hanging out, about to go in the studio and you got your instruments ready?" That's where the photo came from. Um, yeah, and Glenn E. Friedman, he's a cool photographer. He's done like he did heaps of old school real cool photos for like Public Enemy, Dead Kennedys, Misfits, Black Flag. He worked a lot with the dudes from Dogtown, the Z Boys and all that. I think on the documentary Dogtown Z Boys, I think he's been interviewed in that, and he helps towards the production stuff. That's pretty cool. I love how the communities, kind of mesh like that. Don't go pay some nobody that you don't know to take photos of you. Get someone that's from your area who kind of knows your culture and your crew. That's cool. I respect that a lot. The title for Check Your Head, I checked this a few times because when I first read it, I was like, that seems a bit whack. But apparently, so during Desert Storm, um, there was Desert Storm trading cards. And when I grew up, I bought the Goonies and Return of the Jedi and Mutant Ninja Turtles trading cards and Garbage Pail Kids. That was cool. But I never heard of no Desert Storm. I don't know why you'd want to buy trading cards about dudes who fought in a war. I don't know, maybe some people were into that. But apparently there was a trading card and it was of Stormer Norman or Schwarzkopf. And I don't know, maybe there was some kind of reference to checking your head on the card, but that's apparently where the title came from. Kind of wish the story was cooler. It's not. That's what you get. Oh well, whatever. Yeah, and then there's a cool in the inlay, on the back of the record, there's like I guess photos of all their crew, all the people that they hang with, and yeah, it's choice. Um, and then I love that this is like the original gatefold. I love gatefold. I don't know why. I just think it's cool. It's like a book. Yeah, in the gatefold, there's photos of them in their G Sun studio doing the jams. That's awesome. I like it. Yeah, funky, funky, funky. It'd be so cool to have that time just to jam. Just to no pressure and just jam in your studio. Cool. Oh, let's get into the songs. So the first opening song on the track is Jimmy James, and it starts off with "This is the next song on our new album," and that's actually Cheap Trick. That's a sample of a band called Cheap Trick, and the song's called "Surrender." Oh, heaps of you probably know that song, and apparently it was a live version of the song, and for some reason they're like, "Yo, let's sample that." Cool as. Yeah, whatever. Next song on the album is Funky Boss. Doo-doo-doo. And it's just a groovy, cool song. It's fun. It's fun to sing. I don't know if there's any story to it, but it's a cool song. And then after that is Pass the Mic. They get a little bit, I don't know about if I say political, but this is kind of where you're starting to see the Beastie Boys really having something to say, as opposed to their previous albums where they're just kind of clowning around. Um, yeah, this is when they're like, no, yeah, I'm starting to get a bit of a conscience out there and starting to notice what's going on in the world, and I'm gonna talk about some of that stuff. But apparently, Pass the Mic has got 6 samples of Jimi Hendrix songs in it, and the Hendrix family weren't too happy about that, and they almost stopped the song from happening. There's 2 versions of the song. One where I think maybe they didn't have so many Hendrix samples, and then I think just before the album was to be released, Hendrix family was like, "Yeah, yes, we did. Go for gold." And they put the original version back in there. Just cool. It was cool. They paid for it. Beast Boys paid for the samples. I don't see what the problem is. It was almost a court case there. Coming after that is Gratitude. I love that song. That's one of my favorite songs. One of my favorite Beastie Boys songs ever. Um, and it's got the like what's called a Univox super fuzz pedal that MCA plays his bass through. And the Beastie Boys reckon that because MCA is a real cool cat, he's pretty chill. They reckon when he used to plug in that Vox, that super fuzz pedal, he took on a different persona, man. MCA became this different guy, got a bit more intense. I like that. That's cool. That's cool. And it's a great sound, that real fuzzy bass sound. I couldn't believe this when I found out, but the video for Gratitude was filmed in Rotorua. Oh, sorry, Rotorua in New Zealand, and that's cool. I'd have to go back and watch that because and I checked my sources. I was like, nah, that can't be right. And I went and checked my sources and looked at 5 or 6 different sources, including one from Rotorua's website. And yeah, Beastie Boys, for whatever reason, were like, I don't know, maybe they were in New Zealand, but they're like, hey, let's do a video in Rotorua. It's cool. Thank you. And apparently, Henry Rollins used to do like a cover of Gratitude when he was out on tour. Beastie Boys, they did a tour with Henry Rollins, or the Rollins Band, and Cypress Hill. Man, that would have been a cool. That would be cool. After that is Lighten Up, funky, groovy song. Just yeah, it's a nice one. That's a sit in the sun driving your car song. That one. That's where Money Mark really, really shines through. I've said it before. I'm gonna say it 1,000 times. Money Mark just he just smashes it on this album. Just brings the Beastie Boys to a whole new level. I wish I could play with Money Mark. I wish. After that's Finger Licking Good. That's alright. It's one of those songs where it comes on and you're like, cool. I'm not gonna skip it, but it's not my favorite one. It's cool though. It's Finger Licking Good, yo. But after that is So What You Want? Man, how cool is that song? It's got that real slamming. I love the drum beat in that song. You can hear where they had the long cardboard tube drums down from that. It's just a fat song, and you can't help it when you're hearing that song. Just get your bob on. It's cool. All right. Oh, apparently too. When they recorded that song, Mario C found these old karaoke mics, and they were clowning around with them one day in the studio, and they had this really crazy distortion sound. They're like, we need to use that on a song, so they used it on So What You Want. It's cool. After that comes the Biz versus the Nuge. Biz Markie, man, what a crazy guy, crazy guy. I don't know why, but the Beastie Boys like, we should get Biz Markie on this album, and like he didn't come and rap, he didn't come and do any of those styles. Apparently, he turned up at the studio late, in the evening, in the night, and was like, "Yo, where's the candy store at? Where's the candy store? I don't do no recordings with no candy." And they're like, "Oh man!" In the studio where they were, the one they built, it was like miles from everywhere. There no candy stores around there, and they're like, "Yo, man, there ain't no candy stores around here. There's a liquor store next door. You might be able to get a Snickers bar or something." And apparently, Biz Markie was just a fiend for his candy. But he turned up, hung out with them, clowned around, and then he was like playing a Ted Nugent song, which is called Homeward Bound. You ever checked out the song? It's a cool song. And he played like the intro to Homeward Bound, and he's like, check this out. And he starts just doing this weird rhyme. The Beastie Boys, they are coming home. And he just did that, and I'm like, cool. I love that. I love that. Any band that was worried or wanting to get commercial success would have gone, "No, man, we can't do that. We've got to stick to like songs that are going to get on the radio. I love that the Beastie Boys are like, let's get Biz Markie to rhyme some whack, weird stuff over the top of Ted Nugent. That's cool. All right. Apparently, after that too, they wanted to do some more work with him when they did Hello Nasty, and Biz Markie rang him up on his cell phone and he was like, "Yo, I'm outside the studio, man. Let me in." And they went downstairs and he wasn't there. They never saw him for another 2 years. That's Biz Markie. All right. After that is Time for Living. This is a song where they wanted goddamn COVID. They wanted to do like a hardcore song, and they got the instruments and started smashing it out, get back to their hardcore days, and then when it came time for the lyrics, MCA was like, I don't know what to do, and so he just started singing Sly and the Family Stone, Time for Living, and doesn't sound a thing like the original, but it's it's a cover of Sly and the Family Stone, "Time for Living," which is cool. Who doesn't love Sly and the Family Stone? If you don't know who they are, how cool are you? Probably not very cool. Right after that is Something That's Gotta Give. That's a real cool, real chilled out song. And it's just takes you on this real nice smooth ride. The creepy thing about that is, if you ever get a chance to see the video for Something's Gotta Give, it's 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 just a whole bunch of footage of American planes and stuff dropping bombs on Cambodia and Vietnam, and man, it's pretty savage. Pretty savage. Maybe the Beastie Boys were wanting to, I don't know, have some kind of awareness about what went on. That's interesting though. It's a cool video. It's a great song. Great song. After that is Blue Nun, which is apparently Blue Nun is a brand of wine. I don't really drink wine. I don't really drink anyway. But cool. I guess like Guns N' Roses sing about Night Train, they want to sing about the Blue Nun. Good as. Then we've got Stand Together. That's got some great effects in that song. Really like. I'd love to read more about or talk to the engineer or hear some notes from the engineer about how they recorded that song, the effects they used, because it's got some really cool effects going on, really cool guitar sounds. The song itself is not one of my favorites, but I never skip it when it comes on because I just really dig the sounds they achieved on that. It's cool. After that comes Pow, and that's a really amazing instrumental, man. I love Beastie Boys and instrumental stuff. Apparently, Check Your Head almost was going to be an instrumental album. I know they had the Sounds from the Way Out or something like that, or that they did do an instrumental album. But yeah, Check Your Head, they almost said, hey, why don't we just do an instrumental album? It's been fun jamming. I didn't mention this before, but with Gratitude, apparently that was a song that they had been kicking around for a year. Not doing anything with it. It sort of sat there for a year, and they finally got back to it. Anyway, I'm backtracking. But Powell is great, and again, Money Mark is he's just all over those keys, just getting into that organ. So cool, so cool. And after that's the Maestro. It's got that weird phone message at the beginning. Um, I know there's a story behind that. I think I read it in the book. I can't really remember though. David, drop a comment at the end of this and tell the people what that phone message is all about. It's a crazy one. After that is Groove Homes. That's a cool tribute. I love when bands pay tribute to their heroes. And Richard Arnold, who's was an amazing organist, played organ. Um, yeah, and they called him the Groove Homes. He was great, and Beastie Boys, they just obviously inspired by his music, wanted to pay tribute to him. Cool, I love it. After that is Live at PJ's. That's a cool song, just busting the thing out on a live track. Cool. Again, we're gonna do it because we want to do it. I love Beastie Boys for that. After that comes Mark on the Bus. Um, Money Mark. So here's how the story goes. The Beastie Boys come back in one day. Apparently, Money Mark didn't really go home to his house much during the recording of this album because he lived quite far away and he liked to drink his wine. And to be a safe man, he decided that most nights he'd crash on the couch in the studio. So one morning they come in and Money Mark's like, "Yo, check out the song that I made last night," and it's just him drunk as a skunk, just dirtbag filthy singing the song. And again, most bands will go, yeah, hell no, there ain't no way we putting that on our album. We're trying to sell some records, brother. But they're like, that's cool, let's put it on the album. I love it, I love it. So after that comes a song called Professor Booty. And yeah, I mean, again, I don't really know too much about the ins and outs of the song. I do know that they used a sample from a song called Loose Booty, not the Sly one, but a guy called Willie Henderson. And apparently at a festival, Beastie Boys are playing, and Willie Henderson came up to them and was like, "Man, thanks so much for paying me for the royalties for that sample, man. And I really appreciate that. And everybody uses my music, man, and no one pays me for that." And that's cool. I love that. And the Beastie Boys was like, "Man, thank you for making such cool music." And I love that the guy got paid. He's getting paid for his music, as you should. Right. Then the second to last song on the album, probably my favorite track on the whole album, is called In Threes. And it got the name because if you guys out there don't know much about like music composition, how to make music and how to play music, basically most songs that you will hear is in 4/4. 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4. Okay, this song, MCA was like, why don't we do something in threes? You know, like in a 3/3 time signature, which is quite a lot of jazz has that, and I'm not very good at doing uh, threes, triplets. Or yeah. I'm just not. I'm not a great musician. I'm an okay musician. Anyway, that's where that came from, and it's such a cool instrumental. It's just really, yeah. It's a great song. It's definitely the best song on the track, in my opinion. Okay, and the last song is called Namaste. During the time of making this album, MCA really got into Buddhism. You know, he was really starting to explore, all things spiritual, and he really gelled with that whole Buddhist philosophy. And he said to the boys, "Hey man, I really want to drop some kind of spoken word over an instrumental track. You know, can you get with it?" And they're like, "Yeah, man, do that thing." So when you listen to Namaste, and it's a beautiful bit of poetry too. I mean, it is his words. He didn't steal it from anyone else. He's just doing his thing. I don't know if he's freestyling. I imagine he would have written it down first, but yeah, it's a beautiful kind of spoken word thing. Man, I'm eloquent today. I'm on point. Yeah. So that's the album. That's the album. Man, what a cool album. And I kind of feel at the end of that album, as opposed to having an exclamation mark, there's a comma, because I feel like the next album that came out, which was Ill Communication, I feel like it's almost like a sequel to Check Your Head. Like the two albums could very easily have been a double album. I don't know, people might disagree with that, but I reckon those two albums together, yeah, they mesh. It's definitely a huge kind of captures a really important period in Beastie Boys history. So that's my third attempt at this thing. David Barry, man. I miss you, brother. I miss hanging out with you and listening to tunes and going to concerts with you. Man, we were supposed to go to Mad Caddies in a couple of days. Stupid COVID. Apparently, Mad Caddies is coming back in December. That's cool. But David, love you, bro. Keep doing your thing, man. And thank you so much to you and all the essential workers who are going out there every day and just taking it in the ass for us. This thing's tough. Dave, I hope you love this, bro. I hope you really enjoyed it. I did it just for you. And yeah, rest of you out there, take it easy. And as always, stay safe and love music. Peace.